almost everyone is talking about it these days. I know I certainly am. Surveys show nearly 3 in 5 employees say that stress is draining their energy, their motivation, and even their interest in work.
Stress, right, it's our body's natural response to pressure. But when it goes unchecked, it becomes harmful. That includes constant fatigue, irritability, lack of focus, withdrawing from people, and even physical symptoms like headaches and sleep problems. The fast pace of modern life, right? That in itself is going to make someone anxious. It's going to, or at least experience symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression. Like you're trying to measure up to something, right? When there's also uncertainty, there's a lack of foundation.
You talked about getting more sleep and nutrition and mindfulness. What about the people who says, I don't have time for that?
My response, you're really not present, you're not being mindful, you're not aware. So you're kind of just going with it. And, whatever it is you're going with, whether that's working all the time, doing, but are you really present? Are you really living?
Burnout, stress, and the future of mental health, episode 3, Dash Wellness podcast. My name is Tyquon Jordan, co-founder of Dash Wellness.
I'm Carolyn Palmer Wallace. I am also co-founder of Dash Wellness.
All right, and we have a special guest, Maria, but before I introduce her, have you ever hit a point in life where you're so drained that even the simplest tasks like answering one email, doing the dishes, or even returning a text feels impossible? You're definitely not alone. Burnout and stress are hitting record levels, and they're showing up not just at work, but in our homes and daily routines.
And that's why we are so excited to have our special guest with us today, someone who spends her days helping people make sense of stress, anxiety, and everything in between.
All right, so Maria Diaz is the CEO and founder of Living Purpose Mental Health Counseling, PLLC. She leads a practice dedicated to evidence-based therapy and recovery care, and also serves as a trainer and adjunct professor, helping individuals improve their mental health and quality of life. Maria, we're glad to have you on here. Before we jump into the heavy stuff, would you mind introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about your background?
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. So yes, my name is Maria Diaz. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. I am the founder of Living Purpose Mental Health Counseling, and I also have a solo practice where my primary focus is doing EMDR. And yes, I was an adjunct professor at Mercy College, Mercy University now. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Great. Thank you for that. Again, it's so great to have you here with us. So we're going to hop right in. We're going to start with burnout because it feels like almost everyone is talking about it these days. I know I certainly am. Surveys show nearly 3 in 5 employees say that stress is draining their energy, their motivation, and even their interest in work, which is a huge percentage.
From your perspective, what are the clear signs of workplace stress that crosses the line to where it's like, okay, I have a problem or this is an issue and I have to deal with it?
Yeah. So when I think about burnout, when I think about stress, right, I look at stress, right? Stress in itself isn't always harmful. Stress, right, it's our body's natural response to pressure. But when it goes unchecked, it can lead to burnout. So for me, and when I think about signs of burnout and it's how it becomes harmful, that includes constant fatigue, irritability, lack of focus, withdrawing from people, and even physical symptoms like headaches and sleep problems. So when I think about burnout, when I think about stress, that's the way I think about it. That's the way I look at it. It's a yes, you have a mental response, but there's also the physical response that you have with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, Maria. And once someone spots those signs or those symptoms start to pop up, do you have any recommendations on, mechanisms that they can use right away to combat that?
Absolutely. So first steps in preventing to it should include setting realistic boundaries. I always talk about boundaries with my staff, with my clients, right? But I also recognize that boundaries are not easy for everyone, right? Especially when you're feeling overwhelmed. So I think about setting realistic boundaries, giving yourself permission to rest without guilt and including small daily practices. This can look like short walks, breathing exercises, journaling. Small things like that can help start to restore balance.
We also provide services to employers as a solution for employees. Like from that perspective, do you see it affecting companies, burnout?
Well, absolutely. Yeah, I see it when I think so. We're talking about employees, right? Like working
Hmm.
at companies, things like that, staff. Yeah, absolutely. When I think about thinking about it from like employee perspective, we actually at Living Purpose, we work with EAP companies and we see the clients coming in all the time because of, whether it's a toxic work environment or people don't know how to balance work life and they are over committing over they're exhausting themselves that by the time they get home they don't have time to like restore, rebalance, recharge, reset themselves, right? And then right that causes right fatigue, that causes irritability, right? Because as humans we're meant for connection, we're not meant to be working all the time, right? So I see it all the time. I see it all the time with employees.
Nice. All right. So we're gonna move on to anxiety and depression. Now, stress is one piece of it, but so many people are dealing with deeper challenges like anxiety and depression. The World Health Organization found that rates jumped 25% during COVID, and they have stayed high.
Yeah, it's a really significant jump, that 25%. I'm curious, Maria, in your expertise, why do you think those numbers are so widespread today and that, what really influenced that increase in your opinion?
So in my opinion, I think about so rates of anxiety and depression remain high for many reasons. So if we think about like today and just even going back a little bit, right? Ongoing uncertainty in the world, social isolation, economic pressures. If we think about that, and then just the fast pace of modern life, right? That in itself is going to make someone anxious. It's going to, or at least experience symptoms of anxiety, symptoms of depression. Like you're trying to measure up to something, right? When there's also uncertainty, there's a lack of foundation there, right? So I look at it in that sense, why so there's so many, it just remains high. And again, I'm gonna emphasize the ongoing uncertainty and the social in terms of what's going on and the economic pressures that we're facing right now. So yeah.
Yeah.
And what habits or coping tools can make a difference in the long term?
Yeah. So consistent sleep, right? A good sleep routine, right? Uh, really being effective or being if not effective or other being efficient with your time. So being efficient with your time means that you have to be mindful of how you're using your time and making sure that it's being used in a way that it's aiding, it's supporting self-care. So consistent sleep routine, movement, exercising, right? Nutrition. When I think about nutrition, I think about not just, yes, the way we eat, but the vitamins we're getting, right? We're about to go into, it's going to start getting cooler. I mean, it's hitting us already over here, right? And, right, when I wake up, it's dark. Right, 7 o'clock, it's dark already, right? You got to get your vitamin, your nutrients. I am no nutrition, but I know one thing: when I don't get my vitamin D and I don't get my B complex, I start to feel it in my body. So nutrition and movement are so important to aid in that. And then I think, and then consistent sleep, right? Like if getting into a bedtime routine, right? Making sure that you're getting a certain amount of hours to sleep, right? And then practicing mindfulness and grounding techniques are so important because when you think about mindfulness, when you think about grounding techniques, it helps to calm the nervous system. So if you don't have that, then what happens is that when you have stress, you don't have the bandwidth and you don't have the capacity to deal with it when it comes.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I chuckled when you mentioned, good night's rest because I have a just turned 1 year old and I would covet one night, one night of consistent rest.
Oh, bless your heart. I've been there. My children are 8 and 10, so
Mhm.
it's been, it's been a while, but whoo, I
I just
remember.
need some hope that we make it through. That's all I need.
Yes, you will, you will, you will. But yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
Uh-huh. So, in the same vein of, anxiety, I'm just curious in your profession, how do you tell between, clients that are anxious just due to everyday stressors versus something that needs maybe more medical intervention or more intense professional help?
Well, that's a really good question. So because it's a really good question, and I think about like my focus. So my niche is trauma. So most often I'm looking through that lens. Like almost all the time I'm looking through that lens. I'm kind of filtering out. So when a client comes to me and they're telling me they're feeling anxious or they're feeling depressed, I'm always doing what we call like a biopsychosocial assessment. I want to get to know all about you, what's going on in your life, right? Not just mentally, but all those things that contribute to that, which are like the things like nutrition, right? What are your sleep habits? Even like you mentioned, right? Like you have a 1 year old, right? So automatically it's like, okay, so it's not that you don't want to have a good bedtime routine, right? Some things are not in your control, right? But I'm also looking to see like, okay, what do your support systems look like, right? So because I look at things through a trauma lens, I am looking to see the things that people, how they identify, what they believe about themselves, how long have they been coping in this way? Because most often with people who have trauma, they don't have necessarily the best coping skills. They have what we call like maladaptive ways of coping that's worked for them for a good amount of time, but often when they come to me, it's come to the point where it's not working for them any longer. So that helps me to determine, okay, which way am I going? Am I going deeper in terms of because this person has a significant trauma history, we have to go and we got to dig to the root to understand and bring awareness to why they engage in the certain behaviors, or maybe they don't have, any trauma history or complicated trauma history that allows us just to focus on basic coping skills.
Mhm. Yeah, great.
And you talked about getting more sleep and nutrition and mindfulness. Uh, what about the people who says, I don't have time for that? Do you get that a lot?
I don't get that a lot, but I've heard it.
Mhm.
And my response is if you don't have time to sleep, then you really don't have time to live because sleeping is a part of living. If if you're sleeping, right, and I mean like that REM sleep, like that good sleep, right, then right, you should be restoring yourself. Your body needs to restore. You are rejuvenating, you're resetting. But if you're not getting sleep, and you're saying you don't have time for that, then you're really not living because that means that communicates to me that you're really not present, you're not being mindful, you're not aware. So you're kind of just going with it. And, whatever it is you're going with, whether that's working all the time, doing, but are you really present? Are you really living? So that's what comes up for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely hits, not being aware, not being present. I mean, that puts it into perspective, certainly.
Mhm. And it's like, people want to get healthy. 'Cause I work in the healthcare field and, it's more reactive than proactive care. So
Mhm.
people, they tend to maybe work themselves literally to the grave or to the hospital, and they don't take the time to assess their mind, their body, their different aspects of their life. And when people come to you, are they kind of at that point where, okay, I have to make a change?
Yes, yes. Most of the time when people come to me, they come to the point where what they've been doing is no longer working. So even though it may have always been what we call again like maladaptive ways of coping, it worked. It worked to a certain extent, right? But we're even if you're young, you're still aging, right? So the things that you may have been able to do before, it doesn't feel the same, it doesn't look the same. So often people get to that point where they don't know what else to do. Like, okay, this used to work for me and it was great, right? But it's no longer working. What do I do with that? So absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, when people do recognize that they need support, sometimes people fall in the category where, help isn't easy to obtain or to even accept that they need it.
Mhm.
Nearly half of adults that experience mental health challenges don't actually receive treatment.
We see a lot of that, but especially in, our community,
Mhm.
it's kind of, I guess, taboo to talk about. It's still kind of taboo, you know, today.
Mhm.
So what are the biggest barriers do you see for people seeking therapy or getting help or a specialist like yourself?
I would say people, well, I think it's along the lines of like stigma.
Mhm.
So people worry that seeking therapy means that they're weak or broken. And really in reality, therapy is a proactive step in terms of like towards your health, right? So it's no different than going to the doctor. It's it's right because when you go to doctor, you go to the doctor for like your physical checkups, right? So it's no different than that. And then access. Access is another barrier, whether it's due to cost, location, or time. That's another one that comes up. But we also know that teletherapy has helped break down many of these obstacles by making therapy more flexible, private, and accessible from your home. Prior to the pandemic, right? Teletherapy was already beginning, but COVID happened, and then right, everyone had access to therapy. There was a lot of the barriers were actually removed, and it's allowed really people access, at least more than ever, in terms of therapy and being able to do teletherapy.
Yeah, I'm definitely a proponent of teletherapy. I've used it myself as well. And as you just mentioned, it's become increasingly common over the past few years, especially with the pandemic. From your perspective, how does it compare with in-person care? Like, is there a loss of communication as a result? And do you think that telehealth or a hybrid of the two is where we're headed?
Definitely, I'll answer the second part of it. Yes, we're definitely heading there with in terms of whether it's hybrid or just strictly teletherapy. But yes, we're definitely heading there, no doubt. My Soul Living Purpose is fully remote. We provide services in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So right there, right, like we've open access, right, in the whole tri-state area, if you think about it in that sense. In terms of when you think about the difference, or is it like between teletherapy and in person. So before the pandemic happened, because that's kind of what led me to go into fully remote, I was in person seeing clients, right? And I had to limit the amount of clients I could see, right? Because I had to think about traveling. I had to include, all of these things that we don't always think about. And something as small as traveling has allowed me at that time, I've cut back more since then, but it allowed me to take on additional clients because now I've removed some of those barriers, such as the traveling, getting to the location, giving time to get home, things along those lines. As it relates to when you think about being in person and being remote, I think it's actually better. As long as for the client, because for as the clinician, as the therapist on this end, right, we create the space, right? I always make sure that this is where your clients will always see me, right? And I think that's really, really important as a therapist to make sure that you create that space for clients. Now, you don't want to have a session in your kitchen or your children running around, right? I'm always when I'm training my talking to my staff, I'm like, no, no. Like people get comfortable and it's like, no, privacy, doors locked, noise machine is on, create the space, right? But we also have to, I also want to recognize that not everyone has access to that, right? So in terms of some people may have to go in person because they don't have a safe space at home or a quiet space where they can have the sessions. So that's where the hybrid comes in, that it's going to work for some people, just like teletherapy is going to work for others. I have clients who they had to, which is, it's fine as long as I always say, as long as you're in a private location, that they've had to meet with me in their work office because they weren't going to make it home on time. That's not accessible. That's not doable if you have to meet. When you have to meet in person, you got to be there at that time. So those are just my thoughts around that.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I just want to talk about therapy for men, right? Because it's a little difficult for men to express their feelings and talk about things. Do you see do you have different tactics, or is it more difficult for men to express themselves in that setting?
So I don't want to say I have different tactics. And I say this only because my approach to anyone who comes to work with me is that you have to be ready to do the work. That's just my approach. So that I always, when I have a consultation with a client, the first thing I say is that this is collaborative and you're only going to get out of this as much as you put into this. So that's just because that's my approach to therapy. It's like most often when clients come to me, they're ready to do the work.
Mhm.
But yes, in men, it is a little bit more difficult, right, to be able to work through the things. But I say, and this is more of like a general sense for all clients. When you create a safe space, when you are compassionate, when you're sincere, when you help clients to really feel like they're being listened to, right? You're helping to understand them, you're helping them to understand themselves, then you're creating that space, whether it's male or female, right? But you also have to connect. You have to connect with your therapist, right? Like that's important. If you don't feel connected to your therapist, then it's not going to work.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point because someone I know, they do therapy, and it took them a while to find that right person. And so maybe there's people who went to therapy and like, this isn't working. I can't connect with this person. You run you have your own business. Do you see that, like, okay, maybe this, like, how do you match people up in a way?
Yeah. So that's a good question. How do we match people up? So, we have our website and every clinician has a bio, right? And I really don't get too involved in their bios, like unless if there's something explicitly, whether it's inappropriate or just doesn't seem therapeutic. I would, I'll give my opinion, but for the most part, I tell our clinicians to really speak from the heart, speak to their ideal client, right? Talk about your hobbies, talk about your interests, talk a little bit about yourself because number one, right? They're gonna look at the photo and they look at the
Mhm.
photo. They're like, okay, person seems relatable. Now let me read
Yeah.
their bio, right? But if their bio might be totally just not what they're looking for, they're gonna move on to the next person.
Mhm.
And then from there, we offer 15-minute consultations. And then after that, we do an intake appointment. But the intake appointment isn't even like it's an opportunity to really get to know the client. It's a little bit more in depth than maybe like a regular session, but it's also to an opportunity to still determine if you want to work with this clinician. Like you might find even after that that they're not a good fit, and that is okay. You and the clinicians also convey that message too. Like if you don't feel connected, that's okay. Like
Mhm.
this is your session, and if you don't feel connected to the clinician, then you're not going to open up. You're not going to feel safe. You're not going to, and you have to be, there's a level of vulnerability that comes with therapy. And if you can't be vulnerable in therapy, I tell my clients this all the time. If you can't share it here, then where else can you share it at?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah.
This has been a great conversation. We touched on burnout, anxiety, depression, barriers to keep people from getting the care and help they need. If you had just one thing to give people that are at that point, they need help, they're burnt out, they're stressed, what would you give them for advice?
So I just want to make sure I heard. So if I had to give advice to a client or someone who's seeking therapy, is that what I heard?
They haven't reached out to anybody yet, wanting help, but don't know how to get it.
I would say don't wait till it's unbearable. Like when you notice the signs, don't ignore it. Start the process of looking. Doesn't mean you have to commit, right? But looking for a therapist takes time, right? So at least if you're noticing signs, but the signs may not feel as urgent, right? At least you've started the process. I see that a lot too with clients where they'll start the process, but they're not necessarily just there yet. And when they're ready, they've already started the process. So it facilitates a smoother, quicker process for them. So I would say, yeah, don't wait till it gets unbearable. You notice the signs, start doing a search, start looking.
Definitely. No, thank you for that, Maria. I think that makes a lot of sense. That hopefully encourages folks to get started on their mental health and therapy journey. I want to give you some time to just kind of plug your company and what you're doing. If there's anything that you want the audience to be aware of that you're working on.
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, so we have Living Purpose Mental Health Counseling. So Living Purpose Mental Health Counseling, we're a team of 8 clinicians. We have different specialties, but we do focus on trauma. Then we have also a bilingual therapist. She does CBT. Her primary focus is on ADHD, OCD, and sleep disorders. We are licensed to provide therapy in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. We're fully remote. So we also provide sliding scale. So we do make, that's really actually important. I want to emphasize that we do make therapy access through Living Purpose. We have sessions again we do sessions through Open Path. We accept Loveland Foundation scholarships. We also do the sliding scale as well. So sliding scale, Open Path, and we do Loveland Foundation scholarships. We also do take insurance as well. So that's been my mission, to make therapy accessible through Living Purpose Mental Health Counseling. So we're here.
Love that. Yeah. So you heard it here first, folks. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Find a way to Maria and her team.
We're here.
And for those in our audience who are listening, please remember, you're not alone. Reaching out is a sign of strength. It's a sign of really knowing yourself and valuing your life, not weakness, right? So if you're looking for practical ways to manage daily stressors, at Dash Wellness, we do focus on helping busy professionals strengthen their body and their minds as well. We'll leave the link in the description to help you start your wellness journey today.